Claim versus reality, Ballroom edition. Let's do this the right way. Not vibes, not gold trim, not, sir, we need a ballroom. We're doing claim versus reality. And today's claim is this. Donald Trump says the White House needs a massive new ballroom, because Washington, D.C. supposedly does not have the right space for big presidential events. Sounds simple, until you check the map, until you check the timeline, until you check the square footage. Because D.C. does not have a ballroom problem. D.C. has a receipts problem, and the receipts are not helping Trump. The claim is, the White House needs a new ballroom because presidents need a secure, grand space for major events. That is the argument: security, prestige, capacity, modernization, and yes, presidents do need secure spaces. But here is where the claim starts wobbling. Because Trump is not asking whether Washington has ballrooms. Washington has plenty. The real question is, does D.C. already have spaces large enough, historic enough, and secure enough to host major presidential events? And the answer is not hard to find. It is standing in brick, columns, hotels, convention centers, and history. Let's walk the timeline. 1881. Congress directed Montgomery C. Meigs to design the Pension Building, now the National Building Museum, as a memorial tied to Civil War veterans. Construction ran from 1882 to 1887, and the building later became a National Historic Landmark. 1895. The old Pension Building hosted President Grover Cleveland's inaugural ball, with about 9,000 people under a temporary canvas roof, according to the source text you provided. Then came more inaugural balls. Not one, not two, a long history of them. This building was doing presidential-scale events before cable news, before social media, before Truth Social, before Trump Tower, before anybody was arguing about a $400 million ballroom. Fast forward, the National Building Museum's Great Hall became one of D.C.'s most dramatic event spaces. It has hosted inaugural events, high-profile political gatherings, and major public events. Your source notes that Trump and Melania were already familiar with the hall from inaugural events and that Melania's candlelight dinner was held there before Trump's second inauguration. Then Trump complains about the columns. Not the size, not the history. The columns. The federal GSA says those Corinthian columns rise 75 feet inside the Great Hall. So the timeline is clear. D.C. did not suddenly wake up without ballrooms. D.C. has had presidential-scale rooms for more than a century. So here is the punchline. Trump says he needs a ballroom. But Washington says, we already have ballrooms. The Great Hall says, I'm bigger. The convention center says, I'm bigger than that. The hotel ballrooms say, we host presidents, press dinners, donors, and power players already. And history says, baby, we were doing this before your gold paint dried. So this is not just about square footage. This is about framing. Because when a politician says, we need this, your first question should always be, who is we? The country, the presidency, the public, or one man's legacy project? Now drop your verdict in the comments. True, misleading, or needs context. Does D.C. really need a new White House ballroom? Or is this just a $400 million mirror with chandeliers? Hit subscribe, share this with somebody who only heard the claim, and comment, receipts, if the numbers changed your mind.
D.C. already has big rooms. The top comparison. Venue size capacity, notes comparison. Trump White House Ballroom, Banquet Hall about 22,000 square featuring 1,000 seated, per Reuters planning presentation baseline. White House Full East Wing Project about 89,000 to 90,000 square, featuring full project, not just ballroom bigger project footprint. Walter E. Washington Convention Center Ballroom Space 52,000 square featuring convention center capacity up to 42,000 attendees overall much bigger ballroom space. National Building Museum Great Hall about 36,600 plus square featuring event listings show about 2,000 max capacity bigger than Trump Ballroom. Marriott Marquis Grand Ballroom 30,600 square featuring up to 3,500 theater style bigger than Trump Ballroom. Washington Hilton International Ballroom 29,631 square featuring high-profile speaker setup, VIP backstage access bigger than Trump Ballroom. Westin D.C. Downtown Potomac Ballroom 19,032 square featuring major hotel ballroom slightly smaller. Grand Hyatt Independence Ballroom 17,172 square featuring 2,050 guests capacity smaller floor, huge capacity. Destination DC says the Walter E. Washington Convention Center has 52,000 square feet of ballroom space, calling it the largest in the Mid-Atlantic, with total venue capacity up to 42,000 attendees. Destination DC also lists the Marriott Marquis Grand Ballroom at 30,600 square feet with up to 3,500 theater-style attendees, the Washington Hilton International Ballroom at 29,631 square feet, the Westin DC Downtown Potomac Ballroom at 19,032 square feet, and the Grand Hyatt Independence Ballroom at 17,172 square feet. The Marriott Marquis itself confirms a 30,600 square foot ballroom, plus 2 additional 10,800 square foot ballrooms, and a largest space capacity of 3,500. Grand Hyatt Washington says its Independence Ballroom and foyer has capacity for 2,050 guests and describes the space as about 17,000 square feet. So when the sales pitch says, DC needs a ballroom, the city says, which one ballroom? We have a menu. The claim that the White House East Room is smaller and cannot seat as many people as the proposed ballroom? True. The claim that a dedicated White House ballroom would be more convenient for state dinners? Nah. But the implication that Washington, D.C. does not already have large, prestigious, secure, capable event spaces? That's a lie. Because D.C. already has major ballrooms, historic halls, hotel event spaces, and a convention center ballroom space bigger than the reported White House banquet hall. This is not a D.C. has no room problem. This is a Trump wants the room inside his White House legacy project problem. So here is the real scoreboard. The East Room is small. That part is true. But D.C.? D.C. is not short on ballrooms. D.C. has 5 hotel ballrooms, convention ballrooms, historic halls larger than Trump's. D.C. has the National Building Museum sitting there like, excuse me, I was hosting presidents before your grandfather found a contractor. The Great Hall has brick. The convention center has space. The hotels have capacity. The receipts have numbers. And Trump? Trump has a blueprint, a donor list, and a dream wrapped in gold trim. So the question is not, does Washington need a ballroom? The question is, does America need another room built around one man's reflection? Why do you think Trump said it is already funded? So he could graft money from his family and friends. The receipts are bigger than the ballroom. The verdict is obvious. Needs context, and the context is ego. Now drop your verdict in the comments. True, misleading, or needs context. Does DC actually need this ballroom, or is this just a gold-plated legacy project with better lighting?
Don't forget the timeline. Trump demolished the East Wing with no notifications. Said he didn't need approval. It was gonna be the same size as the East Wing. Then despot Donnie tripled the size, exclaiming he has no named donors to pay for Trump's golden ballroom.
Hit subscribe, share this with somebody who only heard the claim, and comment, receipts, if the numbers just change the story.